Hello friends, I'm Dr. Vivek. Today we are going to study the second part of Longinus. In the first part, we discussed the sources of sublime, especially two sources of sublime we had already discussed the first part of Longinus. Now, in the second part, we will be discussing about the rest of the three parts of sources of sublime according to Longinus. That we'll discuss. Now, in the first two parts of sources sublime were the gift of nature, and the rest of the three parts are gift of arts. The first one was the gift of nature. First one was grandeur of thought, and the second one was second one was the capacity for strong emotion. Now the third source of sublime, and from this onward, from third onwards, it would be gift of art. The third source of sublime is appropriate use of figures. What Longinus say about appropriate use of figures of speech that we'll discuss in the third part of the sources of sublime. Since Longinus' primary concern is oratory, the appropriate use of figures becomes important for him. Uh, According to him, they should not be an unnatural imposition on speech, which are thrust just for ornamentation's sake. Figures of speech lend it in element of strangeness into what one speaks, and therefore satisfy the demands of human nature for pleasant surprise. It is true that the element of artifice creates a kind of suspicion in the mind of the reader, but this handicap disappears if the speech is already heightened in other ways. Figures of speech heighten the effect of elevation, and this elevation in turn helps to conceal the artifice of these figures of speech. A figure of speech, therefore, is effective when it appears in disguise. Basically, what Longinus want to say in this gift of sublime is you use figures of speech in your oratory or in literature, but it should be used not for sake of using it. It should be used as in a disguised form. It should not look like as intentionally it has been used. This figures of speech has been used. That you have to take care according to Longinus. The chief figures of speech that make the sublimity are rhetorical question, asyndeton, hyperbaton is also called inversion, and the periphrasis. Some of the important figures of speech, according to Longinus, are, as I mentioned, these 4-5 figures of speech. The rhetorical question is a statement in question from that suggests its own answer. Means if the writer has used the negative question, then writer want positive answer. If positive question is used, positive sentence is used, then the answer writer wants in negative answer, negative. Then this is all rhetorical question is, and the famous, the perfect example, what I find is of this example of rhetorical question is Ode to West Wind. Yes, last lines of the Ode to West Wind by P.B. Shelley. The last lines are, it must remind you, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? If winter comes, can spring be far behind? Question mark. So writer wants the negative answer of this question, of this statement. Now further explain this this rhetorical question. Rhetorical question is a statement in question from that suggests its own answer. If the question is affirmative, the answer is negative, as I told you. And the question, if the question is negative, then the answer would be in positive or affirmative. Asyndeton, the second part of speech, figure of speech, sorry, figure of speech that writer Longinus says that elevates sublimity in literature. Second is asyndeton. Asyndeton is a speech in which word or clauses that should be connected by conjunctions are left unconnected. The coordinating conjunctions are not used without coordinative conjunctions like and type, but type, so type, or type. So without these conjunctions, a statement is used, then it's called asyndeton. Here, the speech suggests an excited mood or intense emotion. Hypervention is an inversion of the normal. The third parts of figures of speech is used by the Longinus is hypervention, that heightens, that elevates literature, elevates that give you sublimity in literature. Hypervention is an inversion of the normal order of words, suggesting and disorder utterance made under an emotional strain. Inversion, basically hypervention is inversion. Normal order should be inverted or changed. Periphrasis, the fourth part figures of speech is periphrasis. Periphrasis is a roundabout way of speaking. For example, fair sex, using fair sex for woman, better half for wife. So the word which is used in place of a word that's in a roundabout saying. It's a roundabout, like as I told you, example, fair sex for woman and better half for wife. These figures of speech aid the effect of sublimity. It help you, give you sublimity when when they arise naturally from the context. So this is called figure of speech. Now, the fourth source of sublime is novelty of diction. Novelty of diction comprises, first one is a proper choice of words, and the second one is the use of metaphors and ornamental language. These are the novelty of diction. The words, when suitable and striking, have a moving and seductive effects on the reader, and they are first to lend grandeur, beauty, mellowness, dignity, force, and power to the style. It gives these things to the style. It is the proper use of words that breathe voice into dead things. Propriety should be observed in the use of words. A trivial subject matter demands the use of commonplace words, and whereas the grand subject matter requires a grand or stately words. If we are using subject matter, depends on the subject matter you are using. If the grand subject matter is used, then there should be a grand or stately words. If the common subject matter, trivial subject matter is used, the commonplace word should be used. That's simple. For Aristotle, ornaments of speech include metaphor and hyperbole. These two, for Aristotle, if you talk about these two elements, figures of speech should be used. Aristotle had limited use of metaphors, not more than two. He restricts to two metaphors only at a time, whereas Longinus believes that metaphors being a language of passion should not only determine the number of metaphors to be used at a particular time. That's fairly right. Longinus says that no writer, when he is impassioned, has time to count the number of metaphors he is using, nor the reader have time to count them when he is carried by emotion. Yes, it's fairly right. It's absolutely right. Here, the first romantic protest against the established rules of literary theory is going against the literary standards, literary theories of classical writer, for the writer of the ancient writers. Hyperbole should be the natural outcome of emotion and should appear in disguise. It is the only, it adds distinction to style. Now, the fifth source of sublime is dignity of composition. By dignity of composition, Longinus means the harmonious blend of thought, emotion, figures, and words into an indivisible whole. If the elements of grandeur are separated from one another, the sublimity is scattered and made to vanish. But when these elements are organized, fifth source of sublime is not other source of sublime, but it's a combination of all the four sublimes. He's saying that. But when these elements are organized into a harmonious, compact system, they gain a living voice. The harmonious composition alone sometimes makes up for the deficiency of other elements. A proper rhythm is one of the elements in the harmony. The fifth source of sublime is just the harmonious use of the other sources of sublimes. So these are the five sources of sublimes according to Longinus. Now, one other important thing about Longinus, we should, as a literary critic or a literary writer, we should understand that's very important, dear friends. That's also very important. That says romanticism of Longinus. What this romanticism of Longinus is all about? Longinus is considered the first romantic critic. He's called romantic of three ways. As you know, Longinus is an ancient writer, Greek writer, or he is a classicist writer, we can say. He is, sorry, but he is called romantic. He's romantic. Why it's called romantic? Because of three reasons. First reason is, for Longinus, the test of literary excellence is transport. As the Longinus says, test of excellence of any work of literature is transport. So for instruction, delight, and persuasion had been the test of literary excellence. All of these kept the reader within the bounds of a region and summed up the classical ideal of literary perfection. So earlier to Longinus, it is said that the test of excellence is instruction, delight, and persuasion. But first time, Longinus says that it is not the test of excellence, but it is the test of excellence is transport. So first time it has been said. But here, Longinus is considering transport the basis of literary excellence, raises the status of the play of passion, and this freedom is very basis of romantic tempo. Now, the second reason of being a romantic, he protests the traditional idea of limited number of metaphors. That is true. Aristotle, the writers limited number of metaphors should be used. But he says he considers metaphor the language of passion, advocates that passion should only determine the number of metaphors, not the arbitrary rule. According to him, according to Longinus, the passion should determine. You cannot restrict a number of metaphors, even two. It depends on the passion of the writer. You cannot count it, you cannot restrict it, you cannot limit it. So that is the second, because he broke the rule. That's why it's called romantic. Classicists judge the literary work by its faultlessness or close conformity rules. They are very rigid about Other than Longinus, the people, the writers, they were rigid poets. They were rigid about, they're stubborn about the rules. But first time in history, he changed the rule. He's relaxed the rules in a way. Longinus. Longinus is, in contrast, sees no merit in this rule. According to him, a faulty grandeur should be preferred to a faultless mediocrity. So, according to Longinus, he says a faulty grandeur, the grandness, that's the important thing, is preferred than the faultless mediocrity, medium or medium work of literature. Faultless medium literature is preferred than, it should not be preferred than the faulty grandeur. So this is all about Longinus. I hope I try to make you clear, make you uh, clear about the concept of Longinus. That basic concept he gives as sources, five sources of sublimes. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much.